Hello, here we go again with reading the Bible. Then Joseph gave his head steward these instructions. Fill the man's bag with as much food as they can carry and put each man's money in the mouth of his bag. In the mouth of the youngest one's bag put also my silver goblet, together with the money for his rations. The steward carried out Joseph's instructions. At daybreak, the men and their donkeys were sent off. They had not gone far out of the city when Joseph said to his head steward, "Go at once after the men. When you overtake them, say to them, 'Why did you repay good with evil? Why did you steal the silver goblet from me? It is the very one from which my master drinks and which he uses for divination. What you have done is wrong.'" When the steward overtook them and repeated these words to them, they remonstrated with him. "How can my lord say such things? Be far it from your servants to do such a thing. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money that we found in the mouths of our bags. Why then would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have the goblet, he shall die, and as for the rest of us, we shall become my lord's slaves." But he replied, "Even though it ought to be as you propose, only the one who is found to have it shall become my slave, and the rest of you shall be exonerated." Then each of them eagerly lowered his bag to the ground and opened it. And when a search was made, starting with the oldest and ending with the youngest, the goblet turned up in Benjamin's bag. At this they tore their clothes. Then with each man had reloaded his donkey, they returned to the city. As Judah and his brothers re-entered Joseph's house, he was still there, so they flung themselves on the ground before him. "How could you do such a thing?" Joseph asked them. "You should have known that such a man as I could discover by divination what happened." Judah replied, "What can we say to my lord? How can we plead or how try to prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. Here we are then the slaves of my lord, the rest of us no less than the one in whose possession the goblet was found." "Far be it from me to act thus," said Joseph. "Only the one in whose possession the goblet was found shall become my slave. The rest of you may go back safe and sound to your father." Judah then stepped up to him and said, "I beg you, my lord, let your servant speak honestly to my lord, and do not become angry with your servant, for you are the equal of Pharaoh. My lord asked your servants, 'Have you a father or another brother?' So we said to my lord, 'We have an aged father and a young brother, the child of his old age. This one's full brother is dead, and since he is the only one by that mother who is left, his father dotes on him. Then you told your servants, "Bring him down to me, that my eyes may look on him." We replied to my lord, "The boy cannot leave his father would die if he were to leave him." But you told your servants, "Unless your youngest brother comes back with you, you shall not come into my presence again." When we returned to your servant our father, we reported to him the words of my lord. Later, our father told us to come back and buy some food for the family. So we reminded him, "We cannot go down there. Only if our youngest brother is with us can we go, for we may not see the man if our youngest brother is not with us." Then your servant, our father, said to us, "As you know, my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them, however, disappeared, and I had to conclude that he must have been torn to pieces by wild beasts. I have not seen him since. If you now take this one away from me, too, and some disaster befalls him, you will send my white head down to the nether world in grief. If then the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant my father, whose very life is bound up with his, he will die as soon as he sees that the boy is missing. And your servants will thus send the white hat of our father down to the nether world in grief. Besides, I, your servant, got the boy from his father by going surety for him, saying, if I fail to bring him back to you, father, you can hold it against me forever. Let me, your servant, therefore, remain in place of the boy as the slave of my lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. How could I go back to my father if the boy were not with me? I could not bear to see the anguish that would overcome my father. Joseph could no longer control himself in the presence of all his attendants, so he cried out, have everyone withdraw from me. Thus no one else was about when he made himself known to his brothers. But his sobs were so loud that the Egyptians heard him, and so the news reached Pharaoh's palace. I am Joseph, he said to his brothers. Is my father still in good health? But his brothers could give him no answer, so dumbfounded were they at him. Come closer to me, he told his brothers. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you once sold into Egypt. But now do not be distressed and do not reproach yourselves for having sold me here. It was really for the sake of saving lives that God sent me here ahead of you. For 2 years now the famine has been in the land, and for 5 more years tillage will yield no harvest. God therefore sent me on ahead of you to ensure for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. So it was not really you, but God who had me come here, and he has made of me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his household and ruler over the whole land of Egypt. Hurry back then to my father and tell him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt, come to me without delay. You will settle in the region of Goshen, where you will be near me, you and your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and everything that you own. Since 5 years of famine still lie ahead, I will provide for you there, so that you and your family and all that are yours may not suffer want. Surely you can see for yourselves, and Benjamin can see for himself, that it is I, Joseph, who am speaking to you. Tell my father all about my high position in Egypt and what you have seen, but hurry and bring my father down here. Thereupon he flung himself on the neck of his brother Benjamin and Benjamin wept in his arms. Joseph then kissed all his brothers, crying over each of them, and only then were his brothers able to talk with him. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and his courtiers were pleased. So Pharaoh told Joseph, say to your brothers, this is what you shall do. Load up your animals and go without delay to the land of Canaan. There get your father and your families, and then come back here to me. I will assign you the best land of Egypt, where you will live off the fat of the land. Instruct them further, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt for your children and your wives, and to transport your father on your way back here. Do not be concerned about your belongings, for the best in the whole land of Egypt shall be yours. The sons of Israel acted accordingly. Joseph gave them the wagons as Pharaoh had ordered, and he supplied them with provisions for the journey. He also gave to each of them fresh clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of garments. Moreover, what he sent to his father was 10 jackasses loaded with the finest products of Egypt, and 10 jennies loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. As he sent his brothers on their way, he told them, let there be no recriminations on the way. So they left Egypt and made their way to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. When they told him Joseph is still alive, in fact, it is he who is ruler of all the land of Egypt, he was dumbfounded. He could not believe them. But when they recounted to him all that Joseph had told them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent for his transport, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. It is enough, said Israel, my son Joseph is still alive. I must go and see him before I die. Israel set out with all that was his. When he arrived at Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. There God speaking to Israel in a vision by night called Jacob, Jacob, here I am, he answered. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you a great nation. Not only will I go down to Egypt with you, I will also bring you back here after Joseph has closed your eyes. So Jacob departed from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel put their father and their wives and children on the wagons that Pharaoh had sent for his transport. They took with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in the land of Canaan. Thus Jacob and all his descendants migrated to Egypt. His sons and his grandsons, his daughters and his granddaughters, all his descendants, he took with him to Egypt. These are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his descendants, who migrated to Egypt. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanoch, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Nemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Yachin, Zohar, and Shaul, son of Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Er, Onan, Shelach, Perez, and Zerah. But Er and Onan had died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Pua, Yashub, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Seret, Elon, and Jachle. These were the sons whom Leah bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, along with his daughter Dinah, 33 persons in all, male and female. The sons of Gad, Zephon, Hagi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arod, and Areli. The sons of Asher, Imna, Ishva, Ishvi, and Beria, with their sister Sarah, and the sons of Beria, Heber, and Malkiel. These were the descendants of Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah. This she bore to Jacob, 16 persons in all. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. In the land of Egypt, Joseph became the father of Manasseh and Ephraim, whose Asenath, daughter of Potipherah, priest of Heliopolis, bore to him. The sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ahiram, Shufam, Hufam, and Ard. These were the sons whom Rachel bore to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The sons of Dan, Hushim, the sons of Naphtali, Javze, Guni, Jezer, and Shilem. These were the sons of Bilhah, who Laban had given to his daughter Rachel. This she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. Jacob's people who migrated to Egypt, his direct descendants, not counting the wives of Jacob's sons, numbered 66 persons in all. Together with Joseph's son, who were born to him in Egypt, 2 persons, all the people comprising Jacob's family who had come to Egypt amounted to 70 persons in all. Israel had sent Judah ahead to Joseph so that he might meet him in Goshen. On his arrival in the region of Goshen, Joseph hitched the horses to his chariot and rode to meet his father Israel in Goshen. As soon as he saw him, he flung himself on his neck and wept a long time in his arms. And Israel said to Joseph, "At last I can die, now that I have seen for myself that Joseph is still alive." Joseph then said to his brothers and his father's household, "I will go and inform Pharaoh, telling him, my brothers and my father's household, whose home is in the land of Canaan have come to me. The men are shepherds, having long been keepers of livestock, and they have brought with them their flocks and herds, as well as everything else they own. So when Pharaoh summons you and asks what your occupation is, you must answer, "We, your servants, like our ancestors, have been keepers of livestock from the beginning until now, in order that you may stay in the region of Goshen, since all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians." Joseph went and told Pharaoh, "My father and my brothers have come from the land of Canaan with their flocks and herds and everything else they own, and they are now in the region of Goshen." He then presented to Pharaoh 5 of his brothers whom he had selected from their full number. When Pharaoh asked them what their occupation was, they answered, "We, your servants, like our ancestors, are shepherds. We have come," they continued, "in order to stay in this country, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks in the land of Canaan, so severe has the famine been there. Please therefore let your servants settle in the region of Goshen." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "They may settle in the region of Goshen, and if you know any of them to be qualified, you may put them in charge of my own livestock." Thus when Jacob and his sons came to Joseph in Egypt, and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, heard about it, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Now that your father and brothers have come to you, the land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and brothers in the peak of the land." Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh. After Jacob had paid his respects to Pharaoh, Pharaoh asked him, "How many years have you lived?" Jacob replied, "The years I have lived as a wayfarer amount to 130. Few and hard have been these years of my life, and they do not compare with the years that my ancestors lived as wayfarers." Then Jacob bade Pharaoh farewell and withdrew from his presence. As Pharaoh had ordered, Joseph settled his father and brothers and gave them holdings in Egypt on the peak of the land in the region of Ramses. And Joseph sustained his father and brothers and his father's whole household down to the youngest with food. Since there was no food in any country because of the extreme severity of the famine, and the lands of Egypt and Canaan were languishing from hunger, Joseph gathered in and as payment for the rations that were being dispensed and all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan, and he put it in Pharaoh's palace. When all the money in Egypt and Canaan was spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph, pleading, "Give us food, or we shall perish under your eyes, for our money is gone." "Since your money is gone," replied Joseph, "give me your livestock, and I will sell you bread in return for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he sold them food in return for their horses, their flocks and sheep, and herds of cattle, and their donkeys. Thus he got them through that year with bread in exchange for all their livestock. When that year ended, they came to him in the following one and said, "We cannot hide from my lord that with our money spent and our livestock made over to my lord, there is nothing left to put at my lord's disposal except our bodies and our farmland. Why should we and our land perish before your very eyes? Take us and our land in exchange for food, and we will become Pharaoh's slaves, and our land his property. Only give us seed that we may survive and not perish, and that our land may not turn into a waste." Thus Joseph acquired all the farmland of Egypt for Pharaoh, since with the famine too much for them to bear, every Egyptian sold his field, so the land passed over to Pharaoh. And the people were reduced to slavery from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. Only the priests' lands Joseph did not take over, since the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived off the allowance Pharaoh had granted them. They did not have to sell their land. Joseph told the people, "Now that I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh, here is your seed for sowing the land. But when the harvest is in, you must give a fifth of it to Pharaoh, while you keep 4/5 as seed for your fields and as food for yourselves and your families and as food for your children." "You have saved our lives," they answered. "We are grateful to my lord that we can be Pharaoh's slaves." Thus Joseph made it a law for the land in Egypt, which is still in force, that a fifth of its produce should go to Pharaoh. Only the land of the priests did not pass over to Pharaoh. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the region of Goshen. There they acquired property, were fertile, and increased greatly. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. The span of his life came to 147 years. When the time approached for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, "If you really wish to please me, put your hand under my thigh as a sign of your constant loyalty to me. Do not let me be buried in Egypt. When I lie down with my ancestor, have me taken out of Egypt and buried in their burial place." "I will do as you say," he replied, but his father demanded, "Swear it to me." So Joseph swore to him. Then Israel bowed at the head of the bed. Some time afterward, Joseph was informed, "Your father is failing." So he took along with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," he rallied his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob then said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessing me. He said, 'I will make you fertile and numerous and raise you into an assembly of tribes, and I will give this land to your descendants after you as a permanent possession.' Your two sons, therefore, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I joined you here, shall be mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine as much as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Progeny born to you after them shall remain yours, but their heritage shall be recorded in the names of their two brothers. I do this because when I was returning from Padan, your mother Rachel died, to my sorrow, during the journey in Canaan, while we were still a short distance from Euphrates, and I buried her there on the way to Euphrates, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he asked, "Who are these?" "These are my sons," Joseph answered his father, "whom God has given me here. Bring them to me," said his father, that I may bless them." Now Israel's eyes were dim from age, and he could not see well. When Joseph brought his sons close to him, he kissed and embraced them. Then Israel said to Joseph, "I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your descendants as well." Joseph removed them from his father's knees and bowed down before him with his face to the ground. Then Joseph took the two, Ephraim with his right hand to Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand to Israel's right, and led them to him. But Israel, crossing his hands, put out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, although he was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, although he was the firstborn. Then he blessed them with these words, "May the God in whose ways my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who had been my shepherd from my birth to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, bless these boys, that in them my name be recalled, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and they may become teeming multitudes upon the earth." When Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on Ephraim's head, this seemed wrong to him, so he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. saying, "That is not right, father. The other one is the firstborn. Lay your right hand on his head." But his father resisted. "I know it, son," he said. "I know. That one too shall become a tribe, and he too shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall surpass him, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." So when he blessed them that day and said, "By you shall the people of Israel pronounce blessings," may they said, "God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." He placed Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "I am about to die, but God will be with you and will restore you to the land of your fathers. As for me, I give to you, as to the one above his brothers, Shechem, which I captured from the Amorites with my sword and bow." Thank you very much for listening and reading with me. See you next time. Thank you.